Hey everyone, thinking about teaching in China? Well, here are 5 tips you need to know before embarking on this journey. But even before that, ask yourself if teaching is for you. The reason I say that is you may have to put your life on pause back home for a while if you're planning to teach abroad, so it is an important decision. Now you're listening to this video, so let's assume you made that decision and you're ready to start. So, tip number 1. Know the requirements to teach in the country you want to go to. Because if you do not have that, then it is time to look for another country to teach. Finding a country to teach in is not hard, but again, the qualifications are different. So it is important to know that before doing too much research. So, for China, you must have a minimum of a bachelor degree or undergraduate degree. So, well, legally, of course, but I would not recommend coming here with false paper. That will turn into a nightmare. So legally, the first thing you gotta know is you need a bachelor degree. After that, the second thing that you must have is either a TFL, TSOL, ESL, or ESOL. If you're interested, leave a comment and I could always produce a video on this topic because it's 4 of them, but for most school you need one of them, and I've not seen one who had one school who had a preference between them. So pick what suits you best. I recommend doing a face-to-face as it is preferred by some, but online will get you in most places as well. So again, do whatever suits you best. Just as a quick note, ESL is English as a second language. ESOL is English to speakers of other languages. TSOL is teaching English to speakers of other languages. And TFL, teaching English as a foreign language. So these 2 are the main important. You don't have the first one, which is the bachelor, then look into another country. You have that, but you don't have one of the certificate I just mentioned. You can get one. It's not that hard, so you can start doing your research. You will also need a police background check to make sure, I don't know, you're not a killer or anything else like that. So all these papers, once you've got all of that, and other degrees you may have, like a master degree, for example, they will need to be notarized before coming here. But at the moment, focus on the degree and paper you need first. If you have a teacher license or a PGC or QTS, you will be on top of every list and will be able to apply for the best jobs in the best schools with the best salaries. But if you do not have that, do not let that stop you. Experience might get you there over time if you plan to do that as a career. Okay, tip number 2, decide if you want to teach to adults or kids. Adult, then it will be training center, businesses, or university. Most of the time, I would say university is what is the most common. And to be honest, I do not know as much a training center or a business. Requirements are the same though. So it is a really specific niche. For university, it can be good, and people, especially for people that did not want to work full-time, then it can be a really good job for you. Accommodation is provided on the campus, but the pay, to my standards, is quite low. You can live with that, there's no problem, but you might not be able to save much. So again, it depends the reason why you're coming to China. So that is important to know. If cultural experience is it, then it might be a really good opportunity for you. For kids, where the industry is pretty big, it's actually huge, you must decide if you want to teach in a training center, into a public school, bilingual, or international school. Then also think which group of kids do you want to teach to. Kindergarten, you need a lot of energy, but it pays well. Primary or upper school. So do put some thought into your preference, because you do not want to go across the world and realize, oh God, I really don't like teaching 4 years old. So do keep that in mind. Try to know what your preference is, but you never know. I started in middle and high school. Then a teacher left, and I had to do both primary and middle school at the same time. And from that point, I realized that primary was my preference at the time. And the 6 following years, I've been into primary school. Training center, then you work in the evening, the weekends. The pay is not always the best, but some people like that lifestyle. So if you want to visit places for a short trip, like visit a city nearby, and a city nearby is relative because with the fast-speed train you can go almost anywhere relatively easy. But the advantage is that your weekend is like Monday or Tuesday and Wednesday, and it's not at the same time as everybody, so you'll save a lot of time because you won't have as many tourists at the same time as you for those short trips. Public school. Well, I never work in one, but essentially the workload is not as much. You may have up to 40, maybe 50 students in one class, and you might have the same class to teach 4 or 5 times a week. The advantage, of course, is that your planning is minimal. You also have more flexibility to come and go outside the campus. So sometimes, let's say one afternoon you don't have any classes, you could go to the gym and work out. So it does have its perks, but the pay might not be as good. But again, if you're coming here to learn the language for the cultural experience, it might suit you. Now, private school, where to start? You have a regular private school that can be IB, PBL school, Common Core standard, or the American standard if you want, curriculum, the Canadian curriculum, the Singapore, etc., etc. You have the bilingual school, the type of school where after classes are will be in English and the other half is in Chinese, and then you'll have like the international school, which are fully 100% in English. You'll have probably some classes of Chinese in there, and those are usually the Ivy League or the top of the chain, and also the most rewarding. The only advice I have here is to know your preference, but stay flexible. You may have offers you have not thought about. So again, it's worth looking into it. Okay, tip number 3. Plan or research a lot where in China you would like to teach the place. A village versus a small city versus a tier 2 or tier 1 city, meaning largest urban center, such as Beijing and Shanghai. Bigger the city, bigger the expat community, bigger the salary, bigger it will be the competition as well, I should mention. But the cultural experience won't be as major or won't be the same. What I mean is the cultural shock will not be as big, and you might not learn the language as much. And you may end up having like an English or international circle of friends and co-workers. So you sort of become lazy if you want, and you don't learn the language. You'll still travel a lot across China, and you'll still have the cultural experience, but it won't be the same because you won't be able to interact as much, because as soon as you go out of those big centers, people will have issues to interact or engage with you. We obviously have a lot of high-tech new technologies, so it's not that much of a problem, but obviously it has its limit. So again, what is your preference? Why do you want to teach in China? If to learn the language or have a cultural experience, the smaller is the better. That's what I would say. If the culture is more important as the money, then a village is probably the best, and it will be almost like a full immersion for you. So that can be also pretty amazing. I've met people that have done that. They usually do it for 1 or 2 years, and then if they're still in China, they'll move into a bigger city. But it is an experience, I'm not gonna lie. So it depends, where you're at in life. If you have a young family and this is a career for you, then a bigger center like Hangzhou, Shanghai, Shenzhen might be a better opportunity for you. Okay, tip number 4. Okay, what to ask before you move. So you've done everything before that. You're pretty much ready. You have a couple of interviews that are aligned. So first thing, salary, accommodation. For the salary, the most important, so they'll throw at you a number. the most important thing is ask. Okay, is it before or after tax? Sometimes they'll kind of be silent about that, and you may have a bad surprise. So I think it's less and less like this, but I would still ask just to make sure, because you don't want 2,000 or 3,000 RMB less because you didn't know it was before tax. So try to avoid having such a surprise. Then you must know if accommodation is included. Do they provide an apartment or provide housing allowance? And if they do, how much will they provide? That number will vary depending on the city, but I would say about 5,000 would be. Sorry, somebody was there. I'm in the school. Yeah, so 5,000 should be give you a good idea of, like, in average the number you can expect for housing allowance. Okay, obviously 5,000 RMB in Chengdu, in the west of the country, or in a tier 2 smaller cities, or 3, 4, and 5. That's gonna get you a lot more than in Shanghai. For example, I am in Kunshan, which is a suburb of Shanghai, between Shanghai and Suzhou, to give you approximately an approximation. My housing allowance is 5,000 RMB. I have an apartment which is 3 bedrooms with a huge, is an understatement, it's a huge balcony, and my rent is 3,300 RMB. So I bank the difference. Basically, it's taxable, but I do bank that money, so it's a little bit of extra for me. But if I was in Shanghai for 3,300 RMB, that would give me a small 1-bedroom in the outskirt of the city. So in the center, a 1-bedroom is like close to 10,000 RMB, and 10,000 RMB doesn't give you much. It's a small place. It's not new usually. You can find some decent one, but you will be a little bit, you won't necessarily be directly in the center. But again, taxis are cheap, the metro is convenient, you can take the share bike, so it's pretty easy to go around. So you can save a few bucks by living a little bit further. The next thing would be, well, airfare. Usually they'll give you between 8 and 12,000 RMB to fly back home during Chinese New Year usually. The next thing will be paid holiday. This will depend on the type of school, but usually in private school you get paid for Chinese New Year, summer, government holiday, but some schools may do like a 10-month contract to avoid paying you during the summer. So make sure your contract is 12 months and you're paid for the holidays. And if you are, just look over all of them. So that's pretty much what I'd like to say about that. Just to give you an overview, international school also will be different. You may have a Christmas holiday, but then the Chinese New Year won't be a month off in the winter. Might be 2 or 3 weeks. So it just varies, but overall, everybody will teach the same thing. Now, if you are a non-native, so let's say, for example, you're from Ukraine or Serbia or Poland, you might not get the same salary. I want to be honest, at first anyway, because you're not from a recognized English native country. Actually, some employers will try to save some money by hiring people who are non-native. So the only recommendation I would have for you is maybe, accept a 1-year contract, not a 2 or 3 years. And then once you're here, you can renegotiate your contract after a year and try to get as much as you can, or go to a different school who will pay you what you deserve. But yes, you have to take that into account, okay? Finally, the last thing is tip number 5. Do your research before accepting a contract. Find more information or feedback from people living there. People that have a YouTube channel. Obviously, if you're in a village, that won't be as much. But the reason I say that is we often have preconceived idea or assumption about China. Many of them will be wrong, but some will be true. I don't want to go necessarily in details. I just want to tell you, do a little bit of research. And one example I'll give you. My first city where I worked was in Hangzhou. My first red light, I saw 4 cars. A Ferrari, a Tesla, a Maserati, and a Porsche. I did my research before. but it's still a communist country. So when I saw those 4 cars, I was like, my God, if that is communism, I think we got things wrong in the West. So obviously there's things that are true though. But the cultural shock won't be as bad if you do a little bit of research in advance. So that's my tip number 5. At this point, you're almost ready to come to China. I should mention that you probably, well, you should download a VPN to go across the Great Wall of China to be able to go on YouTube, Netflix, Google, etc. So I do feel like it was long. I'm sorry. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let me know in the comment section what you would like me to talk about in the future videos, or if you have any comments or questions, please do that in the comment section, and hit the subscribe button, please, and I will see you next week. Thank you.